Hi, everyone. We're here with Steve Yzerman. We'll get started in a second. We're still letting some folks in, but in the meantime, if you have a question, just let us know in the chat. And just as a reminder, we do have a cutoff right at 10:30. All right, we'll go ahead and start with Sam Stockton.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for doing this. I would think
Yeah.
that one of the challenges of negotiating a contract like this is with a 22-year-old for 8 years is the kind of projection forward that goes into that of what he can be over those next years. I'm curious how you approach that challenge, and now that it's done, whether you feel as though there are sort of more layers or levels of Lucas's game for him to tap into over these next 8 years.
Yeah, well, Luke has been in the NHL for 3 full seasons, 22 years old. I don't know that there's a specific age that a player peaks at. But I think he's just entering the early stages of his prime. I fully expect him to become a better hockey player for a couple reasons. I think he's extremely driven, an extremely bright player, and his motivation and whatnot. He'll just continue to get better over the next few years. And as far as projections, I think on all these long-term deals on younger players, there is a little bit of projection in it. There's the expectation that the player will take his game to another level, and that's on both sides. And I'm very confident that Lucas will do that.
Thank you.
Max Boltman.
Hey, Steve, I'm just curious with the way Lucas kind of finished last year, how much did that kind of go into what did you see kind of in how he finished, and how much did that kind of go into your projection on him?
Well, he certainly took it down the stretch, took his game to another level, production wise. We didn't base everything on the last 20 games, but it certainly has an impact. But I felt throughout the season he continued to get better. There was a significant growth from year 2 to year 3, and actually year 2 was pretty good. Production was down a little bit, but it was a good year for him and a learning season. And he grinded it out. Had a very good off season last year, and came in and played really well, and then took off down the stretch. And I could say that's kind of what we were not shocked by that. We're obviously very pleased with the way he finished the season and showed that he has the ability to play at a higher level. And he did that in all aspects. So I don't you can never guarantee how production goes, but I expect him to be one of our top players again. I expect his game to continue to grow this year. But yeah, last year, obviously it helped his case a lot when you're talking numbers. He had, I think, 13 goals in the last 20 games. He really helped his cause, and we were thrilled to see him play that well.
And then on a different topic, with how Mazur and Casper in particular played in the playoffs for Grand Rapids, what are you hoping to see from them this week and through the preseason?
Just continued growth. Yeah, we were really not just those two guys, but we were really pleased with all the young, the whole team for that matter in Grand Rapids, how they improved throughout the course of the season, down the stretch, and then in through the playoffs. Both of those kids have shown us that they're really committed, they're really driven. You'll see if you get a chance to see Carter in training camp. He's worked very hard physically, getting stronger, and that was really an important thing for him. But they're smart hockey players, and they're really competitive, and that really showed in the playoffs.
Thank you.
Elaine St. James.
Good morning, Steve. Where are you at with Moritz?
Well, we continue to talk. I'm hopeful we can get a deal done at some point. Obviously, sooner than later would be better for both parties. So I don't think we're terribly far apart, but we'll hopefully we can progress to getting them here as soon as possible.
And then just with training camp this week, and the last season ended on such an exciting note. At what point is it fair to judge a season on whether it's a success or not, on whether or not you make the playoffs? I mean, we know it's a rebuild, but at what point is that a fair judgment?
I'm not really sure I understand your question.
When is it fair to judge if the season is a success or not, based on whether or not you make the playoffs?
Your judgment or my judgment, or whose judgment?
Everybody's judgment.
Everybody's judgment. Well, I can only speak for myself. Everybody can have their own opinion and whatnot. I want to see progress. I want to see progress in our team as a whole, progress in all the areas we've always talked about, and progress individually from our younger players. As long as we're moving in the right direction, I think it's positive. Obviously, making the playoffs would be another positive step. So I'll worry about that as the season goes along. We'll see how much progress we're making.
Thank you.
And Sarkon?
Yeah, hi, Steve. Just with Jonathan Berggren, what was the thought process on signing him for 1 year, and what does he need to do, or what are you looking for him this season to take that next step and really establish himself?
Well, we talked about 1 or 2 years, ultimately with our with one player remaining unsigned, knowing what the salary cap is, probably weren't in a position at this time to do a 2-year deal. So, both parties are comfortable with the 1-year deal, and Jonathan goes out and has a solid season. He's in a very good spot to renegotiate after 1 year. So, what he needs to do, just be a good hockey player in all areas of the aspects of the game, offensively, defensively. Like, he's got a lot of talent. We're really pleased with how he played down the stretch. It was, a tough year for him. He was up and down a little bit, and probably more than he preferred, but he worked hard every time he went back to GR. And I've seen him here in Detroit in the preseason. Prior to camp, he looks like he's worked really hard this summer. He's in good shape. He's a smart hockey player. He's got good skills, and it's just the ability to do it at the NHL level. And he's shown in some of the his call-ups of brief periods that he's called up, that he has the ability and the hockey sense to play in the NHL. And he's worked hard. He's been patient, and he'll get a good opportunity this year. And pretty confident that he'll be a positive influence on our team.
And also, just injury-wise, where are you? Is there anybody that's not going to be available for the start of camp?
Off the top of my head, only Andre Bescher has a sprained ankle that he did prior to coming to Detroit, I think skating on his own. So he'll be out for a little while. Shai Bouillon, he blocked a shot the other day in the game, and he's kind of day to day. We're doing some more tests. At this stage, it doesn't look like it's anything serious, but and hopefully it's not. But still, he potentially might miss a few days. But other than that, I think everybody's good to go.
Thank you.
Jonathan Mills?
Steve, you've talked about how Albert Johansson is going to have an opportunity with this club to make an impact. In terms of his kind of growth the last couple of years in Grand Rapids, what have you seen from him, and what does he need to do to seize that opportunity?
Well, he's going to get an opportunity. He hasn't played a regular season game in the NHL. He's quietly gone about his business. That's his personality. It's kind of the way he plays as well. And been a very, very effective, kind of under the radar player in the American League. He's very effective. He skates extremely well. I think he's got good sense. He's got good puck skills. He performed very well at the American League level. You know, this year he'll be on our team, and it's up to him to kind of push and earn a spot in the lineup. It's going to be a challenge. We currently have 7D under contract, and hoping to have 8 obviously very soon. And if everybody's healthy, there's some real competition for a job. But I think his skating ability, his competitiveness, really are his strengths. And if he just does the same thing he did at the American League level, the pace is a little faster. I don't think that's a concern for him. I'd say the average player is probably a little bigger in the NHL. That'll be the challenge for him, is being, you know, defending against, you know, top NHL players, and he'll get an opportunity to do that. But he, you know, watching him in junior, watching him at the pro level in Sweden, and then in the American Hockey League, he's adjusted at every level. So I'm pretty optimistic that he'll you know, be a good solid defender for us. And it's up to him to you know, outplay one of the other guys, or wait until he gets his opportunity and impress well to stay in the lineup.
Thank you.
Ted Colvin?
Hey, Steve, thanks for doing this. Hey,
No
so for
problem.
this roster, what's the key to success? What do you guys have to do well to have a pretty good season?
Well, you know, I've talked about it in the past, at the end of last year. Again, I think we need to be a better defensive hockey club, top to bottom. Again, your special teams have to be good. Our special teams both improved last season, and we scored more goals. We gave up too many to make the playoffs. But you have to be solid in those areas, and you can get by maybe not having the best power play. You can, but you better be solid in all the other areas. You can get by not having maybe the best penalty killing unit, but you better be solid in other areas. But the key is, I think, ultimately for long-term success, is to be a good defensive hockey team. And we're going to need to score goals. You know, we've lost, as you all know, we've lost David Perron, Daniel Sprong, and Robbie Fabry. Simply couldn't afford to keep all 3 of them. We'd like to think Vlad Tarasenko offsets one of those losses. We think Jonathan Berggren can offset another of those losses. Are those goals made up by potentially, you know, somebody, one of our young players making the team, or, you know, Patrick Kane for an entire season? Improved play from Lucas, you know, Dylan Larkin, hopefully healthy for 82 games, whatnot. So collectively, the goals that we lost, if we can make up for them as a group, but ultimately just being solid in all areas, and, you know, that makes you a pretty good team.
Hey, Steve, you still have the 3 goalies. You're just going to let it shake out these next couple weeks and see how things go, or what's the plan right now?
That's pretty much it. Let's see how things go. We don't, you know, that's not a decision, you know, not a decision we have to make today. We went with 3 goaltenders last year, and you know, Billy was pretty much hurt virtually all season. You know, it's not an ideal situation to carry 3, but potentially, if we have to do that, I want to make sure Ville Husso is 100% healthy and playing, and today he is, but he hasn't played a game since in a long time. So we want to see him, how he does in the preseason, and we'll reevaluate this thing as we go along. But if we have to, we'll manage with 3 goaltenders. But again, you know, everybody's healthy today. It's just Ville hasn't played in quite a while, so we got to you know, see how he does, and then, you know, potentially make any decisions with our roster if we can carry the 3 goaltenders. If everybody's healthy, we'll have to make a decision on carrying 3 or making a move, but we'll wait and see how things play out.
Appreciate this, Steve.
Yep.
Sean Shapiro?
Hey, Steve. Kind of follow up on that. How do you kind of start to figure out the math on that? Because you mentioned once Mo is signed and everything like that, you'll have 8D on contract, and then with 12 forwards, you'll be at a 23-person limit. Like, how do you kind of start to do the math on how carrying 3 goalies, carrying 8D limits, what type of opportunities you actually have for young forwards to make this team?
Well, you know, last year, the plan wasn't to carry three goaltenders. We did for a while. We ended up with an injury in goal. There's always, whether it was a forward injured, we were fortunate, and I hope that stays the same this year. We didn't have a lot of injuries on D, guys that missed any significant time, but potentially, we have a 23-man roster, as you point out. We can make it work with three goaltenders. The plan right now is to start with 8 defensemen, and we'll see how we do if we're healthy. You can always go 11-7 short term, but we'll figure out if any of these young kids makes us a better team and is going to play a regular role, not just a bit part role. We'll figure something out, and when I say that, there's lots of different options to if everybody's healthy to get a player on your roster.
And then we saw Nate play this past weekend, looked pretty good in the prospects tournament. What's kind of for Nate Danielson, what's a fair way to look at expectations for him coming into this season? What's in your mind that way?
Again, I say, like, every player that's coming into training camp here, whether they're on a PTO or ATO for that matter, first year pro, I think deep down inside they have hope of, hey, I'm going to impress those guys enough that they're going to think about keeping me, and I'm sure that's what Nate is thinking. Again, he's another guy who's in really, really good shape. He takes really good care of himself. He trains hard. Watching him play, he's a very solid two-way centerman, smart hockey player. He skates very well. He's also, he's a good defensive player, but he's got a very good shot, and we expect him to produce offense. And the determination will be like, if he can make the Detroit Red Wings, okay, where's he playing and what's his role going to be, versus if it's a minor role, a bit part role, and he's not playing regular, and this goes for any of our young guys, then they're better off at least as a first year pro is playing a lot in the American Hockey League. So we'll just let it play out. But he's a really good two. He's shown in junior. He showed it at the World Junior Championships last year. A really good two-way centerman, responsible in all areas of the game. And for us, the feeling is on any of our young guys, we want them playing a lot of minutes. And if whether it's in Detroit or Grand Rapids or back in junior or college or Europe.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Connor, Eric.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for taking the time. With Michael Brandsegg-Nygård, it's not very common for a player who's already started the Swedish season to come over to training camp. I'm curious, what did you see in his game that made you think he's ready for this opportunity, and what are you hoping he takes away from it?
Well, the reason we wanted to bring him to camp is to, we've talked with Skellefteå in Sweden, talked with his agents as well, and to Michael, to at least come to training camp. He's played in men's world championships. He was a very good player at that level. We said we would like to bring him over and get a little bit more experience over here in North America, be around our staff, work with our coaches a little bit, skate with our teams. We plan on playing him in the preseason. He looked very good in only one game up in Traverse City, but he looked good in that game. And he had just a minor groin strain, and we just, as a precaution, keep him out. But we're expecting them to play some game in the preseason. So really the idea of bringing him over is to work with our coaches, work with our staff on his skating, on his strength and conditioning, and get a little bit of experience in the preseason and go from there. So we appreciate Skellefteå's cooperation or understanding maybe in us wanting to bring him over, and he'll miss a little bit of time there. But I think this overall will be good experience for him.
And to follow up on that, another Skellefteå player is Sandin Pellikka. Was there ever a consideration to bring him over as well?
Not at this time, no. No, and you might ask why, and I don't really have a good answer for that. But we just, plan was to leave him there. He's in a good spot. He knows kind of our expectations of him and what our plan for him is. And no, it wasn't. We wanted to bring Michael over here to spend a little bit of time with our staff. our, the Red Wing staff, but also our skills and skating people and our development people take a little bit of time here and play a couple of preseason games. He's a little bit different. He's a little bigger, stronger. Axe, being a defenseman, just felt like he's in a good spot there in Skellefteå.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kevin Allen?
Hi, Steve. Thanks for doing this. We just completed the prospect tournament, a little different format than we've seen in the past. I wondered how you thought that worked out, and what is the future for that event moving forward?
Well, Jim Nill and I talked, playing 2 games. The tournament obviously appears to have run its course. A lot of the, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've gone from 8 down to 2. For different reasons, teams wanted to do different things. Some didn't want to play 4 games. Some wanted to save the expense and not have to travel to Traverse City. They're able to do different things. Some didn't want to play 4 games. So Dallas and ourselves played 2. I thought it was a productive weekend. I like playing the 2 games. Would we, be interested in playing a third? That might be ideal. Jim and I talked about that, not necessarily just 2 teams, but somehow getting a third team in it. And he and I talked about, what we do next year, and potentially we continue with just the 2 teams. Maybe we try to get a third team. Maybe we do it down in Dallas. So Kevin, answer your question is the event up in Traverse City is a little bit up in the air. For next year is a little bit up in the air right now, and we're gonna, once we get through training camp, kind of reevaluate and make a decision on what we want to do next year.
All right, last question. We'll go to Bob Duff.
Steve, just kind of a housekeeping logistic question with Raymond, and then when you eventually get Seider signed, they need work visas, obviously. Is that all taken care of, that bookkeeping stuff, or is that you have to wait till they sign before you can do that?
Yeah, we have a plan in place. Yeah, they're basically, they're currently on their old visas, and as long as you apply for a new visa while a player is under an existing visa, I think you can expedite it pretty quickly. Becomes an issue for a player if their visa's expired. And then it takes a little bit longer to apply after a visa being expired. So there is a bit of, there could be a bit of a hurdle once we get beyond the date if Moritz isn't signed prior to his current visa expiring. We can't apply for a new one until he gets a new contract.
And getting back to the goalies, I mean, on paper it may look like you've got a lot of goalies, but you look at what happened last year, you can run out of goalies very quickly. And it seems like today's game, you don't have the Marty Brodeurs or Grant Fuhrs that play 65, 70 games a year. Is it vital now with the way the game is and with this schedule being so tight to have kind of almost a goalie room where you have 3, it's even 4 guys that are capable of playing in the NHL?
Well, I think 3 for sure. I think 3 is important. You get one injury, like again, and this year's a little bit different, but if you look at our schedule at some stretches there with the 4 Nations tournament now, there's a lot of games packed into short periods of time. And so, you need 2 goaltenders. You're going to need, whoever your designated starter is. I guess you need quality starts from your backup, and you get an injury, you better have a good third goaltender, because these games just keep coming at you, and you need solid goaltending, to have a chance to win. So, everybody, whether you have a young guy in the American League that's ready to come up, or you go out and you sign a veteran, I think it's an important position now. And but yeah, no, you could get by with 2. I think now you're fine with 2 as long as nobody gets hurt. As soon as one guy gets hurt, now you're like, oh boy. So I think it's important to have a third.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Steve. And thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.